You know, we talk a lot about single factors that influence crop yields. And one of the things that I've learned from my counterparts in the north is that generally poor crop yields are not determined by one single factor. Usually there's more than one factor that influences yields both positively and negatively. And oftentimes we'll take one excellent variety, plant it on one side of the road and achieve one yield, and right across the road the same variety performs 10 bushels less. And a lot of times we're left scratching our head, well, what did I do differently, or why did that variety perform well on the north side of the road and poorly on the south side of the road? Well, we thought about the things that influence soybean yields the most here in the Mid-South, and we came up with 4 things that producers can address to help make better yields. The first one of those was using a seed treatment. The second thing that we thought about was timely weed control. Now, soybeans have always been a crop that we've perceived as having good tolerance to early season weed pressure because soybeans are planted at a fairly high population. They grow pretty rapidly at first, and so they're able to withstand some competition from the weeds. So sometimes we tend to let the soybeans get a little bit weedy before we apply that first shot of Roundup. The next thing we thought about was fungicides. You know, fungicides have really come into play the last couple of years, and more producers are using them, but we still don't use them on every single acre. And then the last thing that we thought about was timely irrigation. You know, we think about when soybeans need irrigation, and typically we put that irrigation off maybe 5, 6, 7, or 10 days longer than we should as we're waiting on a rain, or we're focusing our efforts on another crop like cotton or rice or even corn. And so soybeans are sort of the last thing that get irrigated in some instances. So we took those 4 things: the presence or absence of seed treatment, timely weed control, and in that situation we allowed the weeds to compete for 2 weeks versus applying a pre-emergence herbicide and 1 timely application of Roundup, the application of a fungicide at R3 or R4, and then also timely irrigation. As we move towards planting in 2009, the study where we looked at multiple stress mitigation and the effect of multiple stresses on soybean yields, I think it's a pretty timely topic considering the number of acres of soybeans that we'll have throughout the Mid-South this coming year. And this was really a neat study, and it really emphasized the importance of maintaining good weed control, achieving proper stands from the start, the use of a fungicide, and proper irrigation timing. But a couple of things really stood out in this trial. The first thing is that delaying the herbicide application 14 days longer than we should have, essentially letting the weeds compete with the crop, reduced the yield of the soybeans by 12 bushels an acre, or almost 14% when you compared it to the plot where weeds were controlled on time. We didn't have any effect on final stand counts in these particular plots, but it goes to show you can have everything right in your stand of soybeans, but if you don't control the weeds in a timely manner, they're going to rob overall yield potential. One of the ways that it robbed yield potential was that the weed competition reduced the number of pods per acre by 9% compared to the plot where we actually control the weeds on time. The competition by the weeds actually resulted in shorter plants, which in turn had fewer positions to have pods, and that ultimately led to the lower yield. Now, one of the things that also had a significant treatment effect or a significant effect on yield was the use of an insecticide seed treatment at planting. This year we used Cruiser Max as an insecticide at planting compared to just seed treated with the fungicide. Where we used an insecticide seed treat this year, we had an average yield of 88 bushels per acre compared to 79 bushels per acre where we didn't use our insecticide seed treatment. Now, one of the things that we saw with treated plots were better stands. The plots that were not treated actually had 32% fewer plants per acre than those plots that had Cruiser.
Now, at the end of the year, we counted the number of pods per plant, and we actually saw a greater number of pods per plant on the plants that were not treated. But what we've got to remember is that even though we had more pods per plant, because there were fewer plants per acre, we could not overcome the difference in the number of plants per acre with more pods per plant. We still resulted in 9 bushels better per acre with the Cruiser Max treated plots, again because we had not only better insect protection, but we also had more plants per acre. One of the things that we've seen over the last couple of years is a tremendous increase in yields due to foliar fungicides applied either at R3 or R5. This year, because of the weather conditions we had in July and August, we had some very dry conditions leading up to the 1st of August. And even though we did not see a difference in foliar diseases at the time that we applied the fungicide, we did see a 2 bushel advantage to applying headline in this test. And that gives us an indication that we may be seeing the potential plant health benefits from that application. The bottom line in this study is that it reinforces the fact that individual plant stresses have various impacts on soybean yields, whether it be plant stands, pod production, etc., and that timely weed control is probably one of the most overlooked management decisions that we have in soybeans today. You know, in the past we thought, well, soybeans, they're pretty tough. They're very competitive. We plant them at a very high population. But I think what we're beginning to see is as we strive for these extremely high yields, that we've got to take soybean management to a different level. We need to start from the time we plant the seed, where we completely protect that seed. We protect it from early season insects. We take out all of those weeds that might compete for nutrients or moisture or sunlight early in that plant's growth. And we need to give that plant the best chance to not only come up, but we also need to protect those plants throughout the season, whether it be from insecticides, with fungicides, with proper irrigation management, so that we can achieve those yields that we've been seeing the last couple of years. So basically, it's very important to take into account that you don't need to just do one thing to make good soybean yields, because as we look at the different stresses that soybeans undergo during the growing season, when we start to stack those multiple stresses on top of each other, we can see how they really begin to rob yield. And so we need to incorporate as many possible agronomic practices into the system to maximize the profitability as it applies to your farm.